51. So this is where the lords are together on the island. This is the first time we see them after the shipwreck. So Gonzalo is talking about, he says in the second line, for our escape is much beyond our loss. So what has he discovered?
The escape is worth more than
Yes, we've escaped with our lives. Okay, maybe we've lost some people, we've lost the ship, but we've lived. We've lived through this terrible ordeal that, did they think they were going to live before?
No.
No. Okay, so I said, discovery that they have escaped with their lives. Again, at the end of his speech, few in millions can speak like us, then wisely, good sir, weigh our sorrow with our comfort. That relates to the same thing that you've just written down, just highlight that part. Few in millions up to comfort. Okay, now after that we have banter between Sebastian and Antonio and Gonzalo. Okay, so those two are, every time Gonzalo says something, they have some kind of smart, sarcastic remark to make back to him. Okay, I just said, just anywhere on your page, banter between Gonzalo, Sebastian and Antonio reveals the dichotomy, D-I-C-H-O-T-O-M-Y, of their characters. Okay, so they're opposite sort of people. Alright, so they're dichotomous characters, they're on two opposite ends of a spectrum, basically. Gonzalo's really positive and sincere and grateful to be alive. Sebastian and Antonio just mock him constantly. They don't really care either way. They're just sort of pests, really. Okay, go to the next page, 56. Find Adrian's first line. Though this island seemed to be desert, and then his second line, uninhabitable and almost inaccessible. Imagery of the island as perceived by one individual. So this is one person's perspective of what the island looks like. Gonzalo has another perspective. Sebastian and Antonio have another perspective. So the discovery of something, the one thing can be viewed from different perspectives and through different people's eyes, and that affects their own personal process of discovery, okay, and how they respond to it. Then Adrian says, yet it must needs be of subtle, tender and delicate temperance. The air breathes upon us here most sweetly. So there's a little bit of a gap between those two lines from Adrian, who was a nobody, really. So it's interesting that he says that. I think Adrian's sort of a bit of a neutral character, and he's been used by Shakespeare to just describe the island in I guess maybe a bit of a neutral sort of way. Gonzalo goes an extremely positive version. Sebastian and Antonio go quite a negative version. So we've got Adrian says the air breathes upon us here most sweetly. Then Sebastian says as if it had lungs and rotten ones. And then Antonio says or as 'twere perfumed by a fan. So they've got a really negative view. All right. So I've written juxtaposition. So I've done a bracket between those four lines. So juxtaposition, everything positive said by Adrian or Gonzalo is countered by Sebastian/Antonio. One's perspective, perception or outlook can shape or define their attitudes toward or experiences of discovery. Page 57, if you can go up to Gonzalo's first line, how lush and lusty the grass looks, how green, up to Sebastian's with an eye of green in it. Just do a bracket and write juxtaposition, same as what it was on the last page. So just write juxtaposition for those three lines. Okay, so Gonzalo, go to the part where Gonzalo has a few lines. So it's about halfway down the page, that our garments, being as they were drenched in the sea, hold notwithstanding their freshness and glosses, being rather new dyed than stained with salt water. So this reinforces verisimilitude, just lots of eyes, verisimilitude/supernatural, and the experience of discovery. Okay, so for the next sort of page and a bit, Sebastian and Antonio are just talking about Claribel's marriage and how it prospered, how it was benefited them politically, but had she never been married to that particular part of the world in Africa, then they would have never been in this situation. And so Sebastian and Antonio are just sort of not very helpful to Alonso, who's really upset about both his children being effectively lost. So, Gonzalo says, this is not important to note, really. He says, my Lord Sebastian, the truth you speak doth lack some gentleness, and time to speak it in. You rub the sore when you should bring the plaster. That just kind of highlights his attitudes. So go to page 59. So about 1/3 of the way down, the end of Francisco's line, he came alive to land. And then Alonso says, no, he's gone. Can you highlight those 2 lines? What potential discovery was there for Alonso?
The fact that his son was still alive.
Yeah, and what has he chosen to do?
Forget that he, not think about it or even hope, because his hope could be crushed.
Yeah, and so what has caused him to not even acknowledge the possibility of him being alive?
The fact that he's not there with them.
Yeah, the fact that he can't see him physically, he's crushed by his grief, and he can't bring himself to hope, as Sinead said, to hope that Ferdinand was still alive. And he says, no, he's gone. I said that Alonso's grief causes him to ignore the potential discovery. Again, about a third of the way from the bottom, Sebastian says the fault's your own, about the whole situation, about how Alonso's feeling. Basically just reveals character. He's quick to lay blame. He's not sensitive. He doesn't see the situation. And then I guess you could just highlight Gonzalo's response to him when he says, my Lord Sebastian. That little section there just highlights what kind of person he is. So then we get to quite an important section of this scene. It's on page 60, and can you go from Gonzalo's monologue? In the Commonwealth, I would by countries execute all things. So can you highlight up to no sovereignty? Basically all of Gonzalo's lines from that point on to the end of the page. Yeah, I would with such perfection govern, and all things in common nature, those 2 other parts. Alright, so he says, in the Commonwealth I would by contraries execute all things, for no kind of traffic would I admit, no name of magistrate, letters should not be known, riches, poverty, and the use of service none, contract, succession, born of land, tilth, vineyard, none, no use of metal, corn, or wine, or oil, no occupation, all men idle, all and women too, but innocent and pure, no sovereignty. So he's idealised what?
A specific world, a utopia.
A utopia, yeah. He's idealised this utopia that's not necessarily real or attainable. Yeah, achievable. Okay. So what other type of people at this time might have held similar views? Yeah, native people.
The colonisers.
The colonisers, because their world was very industrialised. England was, London was smelly and horrible and overcrowded, whereas they perceived natives to be sort of living in the golden age, this Adam and Eve type time where their societies don't function the same way that European societies do. And so I've said idealisation of a perfect utopia. A vision held by many colonists but never fulfilled. Do you think that this world that he envisions is something that he's just thought of then and there, or is it something that he might have longed for before he came to the island?
It seems as though it's something he's longed for before this.
Yeah, it seems that it's somehow preconceived. So I've written, and copy it down please, sometimes people can have preconceived notions of their future / potential / imagined discoveries. That also led me to another question, and it was, can discovery be imagined?
You can have imaginative journeys, surely you can have imaginative discoveries that led to it.
Yeah? So can you discover something through your imagination? Are you really discovering it if you're imagining it?
Imagination, as quoted, is a gateway to opening your eyes to new possibilities and therefore creating new discoveries.
Yeah, so their imaginative journey that they're going on is actually a journey of discovery that can open them up emotionally and spiritually.
Is that also like the illusions?
Yeah.
Like with Prospero?
Yeah. So it links really closely to our imaginative journeys with Coleridge, because this is, when I did the HSC, I studied imaginative journeys. And that's how I taught you about Coleridge to imaginative journeys, because it's something that I studied. And that's the lens through which I studied the Tempest. And you can see the way in which the 2 concepts do come together and do merge. And because there's so much magic and illusion and supernatural on the island, it's something that you can't ignore in your discovery essays. You do need to talk about it because it's such an important part of the play. Same with colonialism. It's not something that you can just sort of ignore necessarily. So yeah, I did question that, can discoveries be imagined, or do they have to be actually enacted, or does they have to be sort of felt or whatever? So I think, I believe they can, but it's an interesting idea. Then Sebastian says, after he says no sovereignty, yet he would be king on it. So Gonzalo's saying no, there are no kings, no social structures. But then Sebastian highlights the fact that, well, actually, you will be governing it. You will be the king. So can you write irony? And can you write his commonwealth is founded on contradictions? Yeah, founded on contradictions. And with any ruler, some are unavoidably oppressed. Gonzalo's next section, all things in common nature should produce without sweat or endeavour, treason, felony, sword, pike, knife, gun, or need of any engine would I don't have. But nature should bring forth of its own kind, all flows in all abundance, to feed my innocent people. So the way he's talking about my this, my that, we see that he is governing this place. There is a underlying search or need for maybe a higher level of power from Gonzalo that we sort of get a glimpse of there. Can you write nature, or like a focus on nature, and asyndenton, ASYNDENTON. What's that again?
The use of a sentence with no conjunctions.
Yeah, very little conjunctions. Yeah. All right, so then Gonzalo says, I would, right at the bottom, I would with such perfection govern, sir, to excel the golden age. So the golden age is consistently reimagined in the Renaissance. The golden age was like when Adam and Eve first were on the earth. And they thought that the Native Americans were these innocent golden age type people. And this kind of golden age thing is also derived from New World accounts, what it's like in America in the New World. So can you write there, ironic, utopic, colonialist vision inspired by Renaissance, RENAISSANCE, and New World discoveries. Page 61. God Save His Majesty, that's just sarcasm there. Anything they say is basically sarcastic. So just anywhere on the page, because it can relate to any of the quotes between them. Audience discovers tension between Sebastian, Antonio, and Gonzalo due to differing ideologies. Just under halfway down, highlight enter Ariel, invisible, playing solemn music. This is something to keep an eye on. The sage directions are very descriptive compared to his previous ones. Then can you find Alonso's line down the bottom of 61? What also soon asleep, I wish mine eyes would with themselves shut up my thoughts. I find they are inclined to do so. It's emotive language. It's personification as well, eyes to shut up their thoughts. And no escape from emotional ramifications of his discovery. No escape from the emotional ramifications of his discovery. Okay, alright, page 62. Antonio's line, we too, my lord, will guard your person while you take rest and watch your safety. What technique would that be? Because what are they going to do, or planning to do? It's irony, because he's planning to kill Alonso. So just highlight it and just write irony. Go to Antonio's speech halfway down. No I. In the second line, they fell together all. Can you highlight as? As by consent, they dropped. As, highlight as, by a thunderstroke. Does anyone know what the repetition of words or keywords in a phrase is called? Starts with A. Anaphora. Okay. ANAPHORA. In brackets, write repetition. It's basically repetition of a word, but not together. So, we see repetition like go, 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 because it's all in a row of the words. Anaphora is the repetition of a key word that's not necessarily together, but it's in a sentence or closely related sentences. And then they dropped us by thunderstroke. What might worthy Sebastian? Rhetorical question. Oh, what might? No more. Highlight that bit. So he uses all these rhetorical devices to persuade Sebastian, okay? All types of persuasive language. Now, we've got rhetorical question, and we've got a thing called aposiopesis. So I'll spell that out for you.
Where's the aposiopesis? Like, where is it located in the...
It's no more. So the two little dashes either side, that's after what might, and no more in the little one.
Yep.
So aposiopesis is spelled APOSIOPESIS.
So last one again?
SIS. PESIS. So aposiopesis is where the hearer fills out what is left unsaid by the speaker. So it's kind of maybe an implied meaning, or they break off not being able to continue out of emotion, or they kind of hint at it and it's left unsaid without actually saying what they're trying to say. And then can you go to the last 2 lines of his speech? My strong imagination sees a crown dropping upon thy head. Antonio, so write this down when you can. Antonio is manipulative. Can you do brackets imagery after manipulative? Antonio is manipulative, brackets imagery, and almost, I'll have to spell this for you, manipulative and almost Machiavellian. So Machiavellian, and audience discovers their plot. So Machiavellian is like basically sort of getting all the people on side and doing sort of sneaky things to get your way, basically. Okay, all through there, he is just, we're on 63 now. He's just persuading. It's just all persuasion. Go to... Antonio says, oh, out of that no hope, what great hope have you? No hope, that way is another way so high a hope that even ambition cannot pierce a wink beyond. Anaphora. Hope intensifies his persuasion. All right, can you highlight on page 64 the end of Antonio's speech at the top, and by that destiny to perform an act, where all of that's past is prologue, what's to come in yours and my discharge. Just write fate / destiny. So 64.
Yep.
Antonio's first speech. He's just basically manipulating him the whole way. Sebastian, 2/3 of the way down. I remember you did supplant your brother Prospero. Highlight that. And to look, Antonio says, true, and to look how well my garments sit upon me, much better than before. No remorse. Or we discover, no remorse. And he says, but what of your conscience? Again, that can just be a thing that links to him having no remorse. I feel not this deity in my bosom, up the top of 65. 'Twould put me to my slipper, but I feel not this deity in my bosom. No guilt. At the very top of 65, no guilt. Sebastian's little bit, after that segment that we just highlighted. A case, dear friend, shall be my precedent. As thou gott's Milan, I'll come by Naples. So, Antonio's actions set a precedent for Sebastian. So because Antonio was able to usurp Prospero, it's enabled Sebastian to be in a position to get rid of Alonso. Okay, so Ariel wakes them up. Wherefore, now good angels preserve the king. Down the bottom of 65, just say serendipitous discovery, SERENDIPITOUS, discovery. So it's like lucky. Wherefore this ghastly looking, dramatic irony. So at the top of 66, why hound now, how awake, where are you drawn? Wherefore this ghastly looking? It's dramatic irony because we know why they're drawn. We know why they've got their swords out, because they're about to kill the king. Dramatic irony. Sebastian, we heard a hollow burst of bellowing like bulls, or rather lions. So that's halfway through his little speech. So he used the supernatural elements of the island to cover his plot. Okay, then go to Gonzalo's speech, halfway down the page. You can just do a bracket. There's no particular line there that needs to be highlighted. Gonzalo does not fully realise the discovery he made. Gonzalo does not fully realise the discovery he made. 'Tis best that we stand upon our guard, or that we quit this place. Let's draw our weapons. How is Gonzalo feeling about the island now?
Apprehensive.
A bit more apprehensive. He's not as positive as he was before. He senses that there's danger on the island. So maybe just a change in perspective. Just write change in perspective there. And then Gonzalo's last line. Heavens keep him from these beasts. What do you think the technique will be? It's metaphor, but it's also irony because he doesn't realise the beasts that he's talking about. There's no beasts on the island. Well, there's Caliban. Sebastian and Alonso, who are the beasts of the island. So irony / metaphor. We spoke about earlier the fact that we need to sort of look for the quote first and then look for the technique in the quote, because we need to make sure that whatever we have furthers our analysis. Finally, the very last thing that we've got, and then we've done Scene 1, Act 2, Scene 1. Prospero, my lord, shall know what I've done, so king go safely on to seek thy son. It's a rhyming couplet. refers to Alonso's future discovery of his son. So rhyming couplet refers to Alonso's future discovery of his son.
So it's an illusion.
Yep. And Prospero's discovery of Ariel's workings or actions. Let's go to the links to discovery really quickly. All right. Links to concepts of discovery. Fresh and intensely meaningful.
The island.
Island. Yes. Island. Yes. Just write down the island for fresh and intensely meaningful on page 68. Varying ramifications.
The shipwreck itself and losing Ferdinand.
Yep. Shipwreck. Losing Ferdinand.
Would a ramification be Sebastian and Antonio wanting to rise to power?
Yep. Yep. So Sebastian.
Because that's kind of as a result of the shipwreck.
Yep.
So they're taking the opportunity.
Yep. Because he knows that if Antonio convinces Sebastian to do that, Antonio's going to go up in the world too. So he's going to do the job. Sebastian and Antonio's plot / thirst for power has varying ramifications for them. Processes and experiences differ according to context.
The difference between how they process the perspective of the island.
Yeah, differing perspectives of the island. First time or rediscovery. So the first time would be the island. What's the rediscovery of?
The utopia.
And Prospero's, like, how they go through Prospero.
Yeah, I reckon Antonio's sort of rediscovering his duplicitous actions. You know, it's like, I remember you overthrew your brother. It's like rediscovering the fact that, actually, you've done this before. You know what I mean? But yeah, it could be a reawakening of Gonzalo's utopian visions of the island as well. So, rediscovery of Antonio's plot or nature, actions, reawakening of Gonzalo's utopic vision. Now, rediscovery of Antonio's actions / nature, reawakening of Gonzalo's utopic vision. Planned or accidental?
Ariel being there to watch them.
Yeah, planned. Ariel? Do you think maybe Antonio's got something planned?
Yes.
Yeah. Antonio. Accidental. The island. Basically, yeah, the fact that they're on the island. Impact is far-reaching and transformative.
This is the island.
The island. Yes, setting / island. Do you think the fact that Gonzalo was woken up by Ariel?
Yeah.
Like the king is basically
he stopped
saved
the
his
king
life. Yeah.
from dying.
So,
Ariel's interference.
Yeah, Ariel's interference. Challenged or questioned over time. Antonio's actions. Plot. Do you think the perceptions of the island, because remember Gonzalo was like, oh, it's so beautiful. Now he's like, oh, we better go. Gonzalo's perception of the island. New worlds and values.
The island again.
Island. But new values, I reckon, from Sebastian. Because he was like, oh, maybe I should kill my brother. Sebastian being influenced by Antonio. What about the audience's perceptions of the characters? Like now they're pretty much clearly drawn for us. Alonso, Gonzalo, Sebastian, Antonio. Okay, so audience perception of characters. New understandings and new perceptions of self and the world. Actually, can you maybe do an arrow for audience perceptions of characters? That would be more for that one. Renewed perceptions of self and the world. Do you think Antonio and Sebastian look at themselves a bit differently?
Sebastian definitely looks at Antonio differently.
Yeah, so Sebastian and Antonio.
And Gonzalo in terms of the island.
Yep.
And Alonso would probably think of the world differently as well because he thinks his children are lost to him.
Yes. Alonso's children lost affects perception. So what you need to do for homework is to, or over the holidays, is to maybe watch the video. Over the holidays, definitely. But you need to, while it's still fresh in your head, do your evidence table.